Hey, what is up guys, Guitar Rock here. Welcome back to another Tower of Fantasy video. Alright, I've been very busy for the past couple of days exploring the New Vera map, so I didn't have much time to test Ruby until today. So hopefully I'll be able to show you guys, showcase her damage potential alongside with a few other characters. So let's jump into it. Now, the purpose of this video is to give you a gauge of how strong she is, not to discredit any other characters that I'm making the comparison with. So, one particular thing that I want you guys to take note of, I'll be comparing her with my Huma. So why my Huma? Because they are both at the same level, 130. So I think this would be a fair comparison. So she's 130, Huma is 130. So the only difference is Huma is 1 star. As you can see, I did activate this particular one. Ruby is still at 0 stars, but Ruby will have the flame resonance, therefore boosting Huma's damage as well. Also keep in mind that both of them do not have any matrices. Alright, so Ruby, no matrices, unequipped, and you can see empty slots. Same for Huma. Yep, just a fair comparison. The only thing is Huma is 1 star. So let's do a couple of comparison, a couple of things that you guys can take note of. First things first, Ruby's basic attack, the normal attack, right? So this particular one right here, so we can compare between Huma's one and Ruby's one. So Ruby's, this particular one is 5 chains of attack. You can see it does from 84.6%, goes up to 253.7%, which is like insane multiplier right there. So this is a 5 hit damage. So we're gonna try out this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that one does the most damage. So you can see consistently, I just want you guys to look, I think we'll just focus on the final damage at the multiplier, which is this one right here. So you can see 83.9k. So that's how much Ruby did, 83.9k. So now we're gonna swap to Huma. Now, Huma doesn't really use her normal attacks that much. So most of the time when you use Huma, you'll be focusing on her dash attacks, which is this particular one. So you do 1, 2, 3. Alright, so you can see Huma's dash attack, it does give way more. Alright, it does give 100k multiplier overall. So that's I think a fair comparison so far. Also, let's have a look at discharge. Again, I don't have King, I don't have Cobalt C, Cobalt D, or whatever to compare with. Unfortunately, I only have Huma that's built. But let's have a look at discharge. So Ruby's discharge is gonna give probably the better output damage, because this is her discharge to do. As you can see, 110k right there. So that is crazy. So now we're gonna swap to Huma. Come here right now and do this. Boom. So you can see this is how much Huma's discharge do. Huma's discharge doesn't do much compared to Ruby, of course. So that thing gives you taunt, right? It taunts the enemies for 5 seconds. And you get 15% damage reduction as well. So it's definitely not built for damage, which is not a fair comparison. Again, keep in mind, Huma is supposed to be, she's supposed to be a tank, a defender, rather than a damage dealer like Ruby, right? Now next up, let's compare about this skill. Now Ruby's skill is pretty cool. She has a lot of bounce going on, and if we count the total damage from all the bounces, she's going to do way more. So let me demonstrate it to you guys. Her skill is a bit complicated. She has this cube that bounces towards her and towards the enemy. The more enemies there are, the more it bounces, the easier it bounces around. But if you're too close to the enemy, let's say like this, if I use this one, you can see that cube just fly back behind. So this cube right here, it just is very wonky, right? So you gotta have a perfect distance between you and the enemy. Somewhere around here would be fine, right? Not too near to the enemy. So when you use this, so notice now you got this cube that bounces between you and the enemy. Now this is going to give you a lot of damage. It's not okay. That one somehow missed somewhat, but like I said, if it's bouncing between enemies, it's going to be much more easier. 127k in total right there. So let's jump into Huma. So Huma is going to give us extra burn, but I don't think that will be close to what Ruby was able to give. If we get more bounces, it's going to give more. As you can see, 77k total damage, right? So there you have it, testing. I think this is as fair as it gets. Between Ruby at 0 stars right now versus Huma at 1 star. But even then, it doesn't matter because Huma at 1 star, I'm not taking advantage of this. So this is basically if you get the discharge and then you try to stack the strong shield, and then you convert to the sharp X afterwards, you get this damage increase by 15%. But I didn't basically use this Now one thing that's difficult for me to show against a non-moving cactus target is this ability right here. It's very good. So you throw this rabbit, it sucks the enemy into one area. So it's such a good synergy with a lot of other skills, right? And it costs 1 dodge. Look at that. It even sucks like fat enemies like these 3 fat guys, right? Look, this fat guy gets sucked as well. Even though I can suck all 3 fatty at once, look, these 2 fatty, I can do this. Suck the fatty together. Like, it's such an insane skill. Like, it groups the enemies together in the position that you want them to be. I don't think it works on bosses though, so keep in mind. But it's so good. Like, this ability is so good. It doesn't do much damage, but you can see once the doll explodes, let's see if we can showcase when the doll explodes, boom, it does damage as well. So reminds me of Ember from Genshin, you know, except for the sucking part. Like, the suck is definitely underrated for sure. The ability to group enemies, this gives her so much synergy with Huma, King. You group them together and then you burst them down, right? I think it's insane. Now, one thing that sometimes I do get asked a lot is what's the best way to use Ruby when you have the stamina? Actually, if you notice this skill right here, let me see if I can show you guys the chain normal attack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this does about 84.5k, right? So let's reset this. But if you have the stamina, it's better for you to use this particular skill. The whole skill, this does way more damage. Although it's going to consume stamina, but it does way more damage. You can see for the same, about the same duration, I would assume, it does 123k attack. So unless you are shield breaking, right? Unless you're trying to break a shield in particular, if you're trying to get the most out of your Ruby in terms of the damage, you want to try to use this particular skill, Gacha. It consumes endurance as well, something that you have to keep in mind. But it doesn't break shield as efficient. Like we've mentioned about this before, if you are shield breaking, this is going to be the skill that makes the most sense. The spark attack, you want to chain the 5 normal attacks if you can. That might change once you reach 1 star, because here it says emblazon boosts the damage of spark attack to 80%. So I'm going to assume spark attack is this one, which is the basic skill right here. So maybe at 1 star, that's going to change. But at 0 stars, it seems like the whole attack, the one that consumes the endurance thing, seems to give more damage overall, unless, like I said, you're trying to break an enemy's shield, then you want to use the spark attack, the 5 chain normal attack. So yeah, let's go through 1 normal rotation without any discharge. Just use skill and 5 normal attack and how you will use Huma as well. So we're gonna do this 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's a skill plus 5 chains of normal attack. And it's still going, it's still going. There's a lot of bounce. How is that so long? Okay, Ruby does about 240k, right? So now test Huma. Now again with Huma is a little bit different. We usually use skill and then we use dash attack. Like, this is how you usually use Huma. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, I don't know if you can pull off sometimes 3, sometimes 4, but you can see Huma does 230k, right? So quite similar, I would say, in terms of the damage. Just keep in mind that Huma does consume the dash, which is something that you have to take into consideration, while Ruby doesn't. Now, one thing that I want you guys to keep in mind, we are fighting against a static target. This guy, this cactus right here, this dude doesn't move. He's staying still. Now, in a much more realistic scenario, in a much more like when you're fighting in Bygone Phantasm, you're fighting in raid bosses against enemies that are constantly moving around, Ruby will far output Huma's damage, and that is going to be the obvious case because Ruby is a ranged character. Unlike Huma, she needs to get close, she needs to move around and chase the enemy, and in real world, like in a proper fight case scenario, that's going to be harder to do. Now, Ruby being a ranged character have the advantage, right? So she's going to have much more DPS output or consistent DPS because she doesn't have to go near to the enemy compared to how Huma does, right? Huma, now if you use Huma, you'll have to, like, you know, try and dash forward, and that's gonna consume your dash charge as well, which is something that you guys have to keep in mind. Now, if you guys stay until the end, is Ruby worth pulling? Yes. If you're free to play, highly recommend pull her 1 copy. Why is that? This is the most important part that I think not many players talk about. let's talk about fire in general. Some people, they might say, oh, you shouldn't, I want to build ice team, I want to build physical team, etc. But I'm going to tell you why you want to consider Ruby. Ruby is such an easy character. If you don't have Cobalt C, Cobalt D, most likely you would have King or Huma or Zero, and you can pair with them to get the Flame Resonance, right? Very easily achievable. If you guys are not aware, Ruby is one of the character alongside with Cobalt B that has this Flame Resonance. Very cool. If you have 2 fire, you get this flame attack plus 15%, flame resistance by 25%. Now, why should you care? If you enjoy playing the game, in the long run, it's going to benefit you a lot because of this stupid content right here called Wormhole. Yes, I know not many people like to talk about this, but I like to bitch about Wormhole. Why Wormhole? Alright, if you guys have been playing since day 1, you will notice one thing about Wormhole. Wormhole never buffs other elements. I'm serious. Wormhole never buffs other... Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. They always buff fire. Fire is always up. Increase flame damage to enemies by 50%. Fire is always enabled in Wormhole. I can't show you because I'm like halfway here, but Wormhole, fire will always get buffed. I think Frost never gets buffed before. Right now physical is so-called buff, but it's actually nerfed because immune. So it's crazy. Fire will always be the ultimate element for you to be able to beat Wormhole consistently and have an easier time as a free-to-play, right? That's why I make guides like this to help out free-to-play players with minimal resources. Wormhole is one of the few contents in the game that you cannot rely on someone else. This is a solo content. You can't say, oh, I can just be a healer and I'll help other people. That's group content. Wormhole is not that, sadly. And this is one of the best places to get gears as well because it gives you the energy crystal dust, especially the purple ones. So I do think pulling for Ruby, you are reinvesting your account, making it better in the long term. So obviously, unless they change this, but for now, Wormhole has always get the flame buff consistently every single week, which is insane. Alright, something that I wish the developer would give other elements a chance, please. Alright, so pulling for Ruby, you won't regret it. You know, if you build her, she's gonna be strong right there alone. That reason alone is enough for you to be able to pull for Ruby over Cobalt C, Cobalt D, because she's more advancement specific and you need multiple copies, right? Ruby is so cheap. Zero, just 1 copy is probably more than enough. I might consider getting 1 more just to get her to A1 and test her damage because I really enjoy using her, really having a ton of fun with her. Alright, so that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Let me know what you guys think of my points in this video. Do you guys agree, disagree? As always, subscribe if you haven't already, give this video a like, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have a nice day. Goodbye.